In this video, we are going to talk about the latest gaming news that includes Bayonetta 3, a new classic Nintendo 64 game hitting the Nintendo Switch, and more Bayonetta craziness and other cool Nintendo Switch news. So Bayonetta 3 has gone and launched and it's reviewing pretty well. Before this game came out though, it went through a bit of a controversy. Helena Taylor, the first Bayonetta voice actress, was first replaced by a bigger voice actress, Jennifer Hale, and at first we didn't really think too much of it. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago and Jennifer Hale came out accusing Platinum Games of lowballing her and not paying her a livable wage. The internet took sympathy on this, but there was something off about it. It was pretty strange. In those videos, she called for a boycott for Bayonetta 3 and claimed Bayonetta as her own while throwing the other new voice actress under the bus. This only made sales for Bayonetta 3 before the release rise even higher, even beating out games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Fortunately, it was quickly found out that Helena Taylor was lying through Jason Schreier, VGC, and Bloomberg. It was not $4,000 for 4 to 5 sessions, but $15K for the entire voice acting job. When she was caught in the lies, she still stuck to her original story in that 3-part video, only later to come out and say another story that proved Jason Schreier's information on the situation right, all while including some more lies / omitting certain details again and asking for a second boycott. This was the second attempt to boycott Bayonetta 3, which of course didn't work, and it again raised the sales of Bayonetta 3. Now fast forward to yesterday and she is yet again asking for a boycott, and this is what Helena Taylor said. "My posts have had a nerve with people. Low pay resonates not just in the gaming industry, but in a wider world beyond, all over the planet. To donate your boycott money, there are many small local charities that need your help. Food banks, homeless charities, children charities, and animal charities. Buy homeless people coffees or bake / buy a cake for lonely elderly neighbors. Buy a bunch of flowers and give one to people who look sad on the street. We must care for people. So many ideas once you start." Or, just buy the game like you were planning to. So not only is she trying to seem like the money she was getting is low pay and not a livable wage. A lot of voice actors take multiple gigs a year and she wasn't really doing that. But at the same time, she's talking about the actual low paid voice actresses and actors that are actually being used by these companies. Personally, if I was a voice actor and I knew of this situation and I read this quote, I'd think she's a pretty scummy person, I'm not gonna lie. It's also pretty laughable that she's still trying to boycott Bayonetta 3 for a third time despite nearly everyone who follows this disaster making a mock of her, rightfully so in my opinion, and still buying Bayonetta 3. And here's the sad reality of this quote and what she's continuing doing by coming out and saying more things instead of leaving it to rest. Helena Taylor is putting out a bad name for other voice actresses here. She's damaging the already tough situation that some voice actresses face, all while standing on some kind of moral high ground and saying donate money to charity. Which, if you want to donate to charity, then donate to charity, but not because someone told you to donate to charity. I don't know, personally that would feel a little off if someone told me to donate to charity and then I donated to charity. I would want that to come from something that I want to do instead of someone telling me to do it. And here's one more thing I noticed. She said that she can barely run a car, right? That the pay was immoral, the low pay was making her suffer. Let me ask you a question, the viewer. If you're struggling with money, would you donate your low funds to charity? Would you put yourself in a worse living situation and potentially become even more financially unstable? Probably not, right? So if she was indeed in trouble financially, why was it so easy for her to donate money to charity instead of waiting to build up her funds and be in a better spot and then donate to charity? Again, like I said in the beginning, something's off here. Something's very, very off. And that's after all the information we know. So still, something's very off. I'm starting to wonder if she was actually financially unstable, or was that just another lie that she told? And moving on to the next topic, it seems that Bayonetta 3 is going through some trouble with performance. So if you guys haven't heard yet, the experience of Bayonetta 3, technical wise, is not the best. Digital Foundry did a video on the game and I have some quotes that we need to discuss about, with the first one saying this. "But here's the thing, during normal gameplay the target is 60 frames per second, but it rarely manages to reach that, and that is a real bummer. In a completely empty battlefield, the frame rate still regularly dips below 60 frames per second. And the quotes continue to say this. Once you drop into combat, it's basically just completely unlocked and unstable. And given Platinum's history with porting games, this actually seems like it's a very real possibility as well. So maybe we'll see an enhanced version of Bayonetta 3 down the line. My feeling is that Platinum Games technology really needs a full revamp. It doesn't exactly play well to the strengths of the Switch hardware. Temper your expectations on the tech side, and you'll have a good time with Bayonetta 3. So judging by the Digital Foundry quote here in Nintendo's Life's article, it's part due to Platinum Games tech, but also due to the Switch hardware. Now this brings up that conversation that we do need a more powerful Nintendo Switch or a console or whatever the next console is going to be so that Nintendo games just run better. And when you look back at a lot of different Nintendo consoles, that's always the case. A lot of times, games just don't run best on Nintendo Switch hardware or just Nintendo hardware in general. And I'm not asking for 4K resolution, I'm just asking for a stable frame rate and a good resolution. I think a lot of Nintendo Switch games do have that, but I think there are a lot of ones that don't as well, and I think that just sucks. When you're having a lot of fun with the game and all of a sudden starts chugging, it's not fun to play and it makes you want to quit the game. The Nintendo Switch is a fantastic console, yes, but I think it has a lot of things that it can improve on, especially the hardware. The hardware is pretty outdated, especially if you compare it to even last gen on the PS4 and Xbox One. Even if you don't, there are many games that still chug. The low frame rate, the low resolution dips, the muddiness of the textures, a lot of this can be fixed with a little bit of better hardware, and I think Nintendo will probably do something like that. At least I would hope so anyways, because I think a lot of devs would like to see a more powerful Nintendo Switch so they have more wiggle room with their games. And yes, this is sometimes due to the developer. It's not just the Nintendo Switch hardware. There are some times when games run crap on the Nintendo Switch, and they shouldn't. So I'm not saying it's all the Nintendo Switch's fault, but clearly an upgrade is needed eventually. If not in the next 1 or 2 years, definitely by that 3rd year. And if I recall, Nintendo considers the Nintendo Switch in its halfway point, so are we going to be getting another 3 to 4 years, or are we going to get a more powerful Nintendo Switch? When they say we're in the halfway point of the Nintendo Switch's lifeline, do they think of the brand or do they think of the current console? Because if they're talking about the brand, then they can make a more powerful Nintendo Switch so that games run better, and that's still in the Switch's lifetime. But if they're just thinking about the console, then that's a little weird because, I mean, we can't survive with 3 to 4 more years of this. We definitely need better hardware because eventually a lot of games are going to chug and it's going to be a big problem on the Nintendo Switch. Right now it is a problem, but I don't think it's a problem that's going to affect the Nintendo Switch sales and make people not want to play on the Nintendo Switch en masse. But I think eventually that can become a problem. I guess we'll have to see what Nintendo does. Personally, I think 60 FPS should be the target of most games, especially if you're going to go with a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro. At least 1080p, 60 FPS would be nice. And that's in handheld mode. Now, it is a smaller screen too, so you probably won't notice it even if it's 720 60 FPS. If they can hit that at most to all games, that would be fantastic as well. Unfortunately, not every game does that, and it really sucks because you can really tell it, especially when you play games like an FPS shooter. Overwatch 2, I'm looking at you. I hate how it runs on the Switch. It runs, but it doesn't run well, especially when you compare it to the PS5. It's just not even close. And keeping up with the Bayonetta news, we have some great news for people who haven't played the past Bayonetta games, at least Bayonetta 1 when it comes to those games. It seems that more physical copies of Bayonetta 1 on the Nintendo Switch are heading to the Nintendo UK store, with a tweet by Nintendo's UK Twitter account saying this: "We apologize that we could not meet the demand for the physical edition of the first Bayonetta game recently. We will restock the physical edition of the first Bayonetta game once more later this year, and that will be available on the My Nintendo store, by the way, if you guys are curious." So this is great news. The cool thing about this is that people who want to play the first game before playing Bayonetta 3, or they want to buy both games, can finally get that physical edition for the first game if they didn't get to snag it at first. Some people don't want to go into the store and buy it physically, and some people don't want to start an Amazon account or a Walmart account, and maybe they have a My Nintendo account instead and they want to get it from that store. And who doesn't love more options to play these games and buy these games? I think that's great. And moving on to the next topic, we have some more Persona Nintendo Switch sale news. So the last episode that we covered the news on the Persona sales is that in the UK, Persona 5 Royale sales were 79% of the Nintendo Switch, which is pretty crazy. Now this is due to multiple factors, like the game was on Game Pass for one. I think anyone who owns an Xbox and would have played these games probably played it on Game Pass instead of spending about $60 or whatever the price tag actually is. I don't know how much it is. I'll probably put it on the screen right now. This is especially true if you reactivate your Game Pass every month. You're probably going to play it eventually if you're interested in RPGs, or just an anime fan, or you just like the Persona series, or you're curious on it. Because it wasn't until recent that a lot of the Persona games were hitting all of these other platforms. It used to be dedicated to just the Sony platform. Well, other than the 3DS with the spin-offs, those were pretty cool though. I think it was called Persona Q, I believe. Another reason is that the Nintendo Switch is portable. That's a big thing that's driving a lot of games on the Nintendo Switch, and it's something that we've seen a lot on the Nintendo Switch when we see these multi-platform releases. A lot of people will double dip as well because they get that portable version, especially if you work in an office and you can play your Switch on the break or in between calls or whatever job you do, and so on. It's that flexibility of the Nintendo Switch that I think drives a lot of these sales for these Nintendo Switch games when they look pretty similar to the PS5 version and the Xbox version. Now, in that video I said I think we're gonna see some great sales in Japan as well, because typically what happens is when you see sales in the UK, usually it reflects around the world. This is what Persona Central says about the sales for Persona 5 Royal. The remastered version of Persona 5 Royal was released on the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S, Xbox One, Windows PC, and Steam in Japan last week on October 21st. And the sales tracker Famitsu reports that 51,049 total physical copies were sold during its first week in stores. The Famitsu estimated sales data for this version of Persona 5 Royal in Japan are the sales ranging from October 17th to October 23rd, 2022. The numbers of copies sold does not include digital downloads as well. Persona 5 Royal sold 45,998 physical copies during its first week on the Nintendo Switch, earning that SKU's second place in this week's overall sales ranking, behind Splatoon 3. The PlayStation 5 version of the game sold 5,051 copies during this time period. So it seems that most people are buying it on the Nintendo Switch, which makes a lot of sense, and it's just like in the UK, it's happening in Japan, and most likely it's going to happen in the US as well. Another cool tidbit is that it's the second most played game on Xbox Game Pass as well, which is pretty big. And this is pretty exciting because this is going to grow the Persona series. I like the series. While the series is a pretty big series, it's never had its true growth potential because it's limited on older hardware or just one platform. But now that the games are so widely available, I think the Persona brand, and by extension other games like it, are going to have a giant surge in popularity, and I think that's just great because I love RPG games. I like these kind of games, and the fact that we could potentially get more because they're going across multiple platforms is a fantastic thing. And next up, it seems that Glover is hitting the Nintendo Switch. This game is not coming to the Nintendo Switch online service though. If you guys didn't know, this game used to be on the Nintendo 64, so one would think that they would put it on the Nintendo Switch online service. But here we're having a standalone release, which makes me think that maybe we can get other games that are standalone releases that are coming from the Nintendo 64 catalog. But speaking on Glover itself, I used to play this game a lot as a kid. If you guys watch this channel, you may have caught a couple times in my videos that I joke around about Glover hitting the Nintendo 64. But it's a real nostalgia blast for me to see this trailer, so I hope I can pick up this game. But it really makes you also think that what other Nintendo 64 games could we see a standalone release in this format? Recently we talked about Xbox wanting more Xbox games hitting the Nintendo Switch, and while that was just talking about Call of Duty, that would obviously extend to other games like Blizzard and Activision games. But not only those, but other games that aren't Blizzard and Activision. Personally, what I would love to see is to try to get them to get Conker's Bad Fur Day, the Nintendo 64 version, on the Nintendo Switch as a standalone release. Heck, maybe even put both versions, Live and Reloaded and the original Nintendo 64 version of Conker's Bad Fur Day. I think that would be cool as well. It would be really cool if online multiplayer was added as well. Conker's Bad Fur Day has such a great multiplayer. I remember sitting on the couch with my friends and having that 4-player co-op on the game. It was just a great time back then, so I hope they can do that. And I personally think this is possible. We're seeing 007 hit the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo 64 version, and now we're seeing other games come to the platform as well. We're seeing the Glover 64 version coming to the Nintendo Switch as well, so it's really interesting to see these standalone releases that are older games on the Nintendo Switch. And the great thing about this is that there's a reason to buy these on the Nintendo Switch versus a console that's stuck to the TV. You get that portable version of the game, but you can also play it on the TV as well. It's really fantastic. Overall, guys, a lot of cool news in the past couple days. Make sure you guys tell me your thoughts on the news in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.